Hey, Tiffini, thank you so much for joining me on the show. We met at Soulful Day, which was just a beautiful day all about empowering women. And you were set up there, and we briefly had a conversation about human design because you are a human design coach. And I could just tell right away from talking to you that you are full of valuable information. And I just knew I have to have you on the show. We have to talk about human design and all the ways that it can empower people on fulfilling their purpose and stepping into their entrepreneurial power. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Tiffini, can you just start by telling us a little bit more about who you are and what you do exactly, who you help?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jeannie, for having me be here today. I really appreciate the invitation. And I felt your energy too on that soulful day of just like, it's kind of like two people that kind of knew each other maybe from a past life where we're just like, oh, we need to like get to know each other better. And yeah, you saw my passion for human design. So I am a former elementary school teacher, 23 years. I just finished. I'm studying to be a psychotherapist, and I found human design about 3.5 years ago. And with my teaching background and my love for the helping profession, I just thought, wow, like I could do this too. I could teach this as a modern day spiritual science to help parents, to help entrepreneurs. And I'm also raising a 13-year-old daughter with autism and ADHD. So she is part of my driving force into stepping into my entrepreneurship and, taking this idea of teaching to a wider community.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you offer coaches. Tell me a little bit too about you just recently left teaching. So did you leave teaching so you could become a psychotherapist and now you're pursuing coaching full time? Like that's what's keeping you down?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really what woke me up, so I've been on a spiritual on like awakening journey since 2016. But really what woke me up was during the pandemic and noticing what was going on in the school system. And it just wasn't matching with my values and my morals any longer. And so I created a 2 to 3 year plan to leave, to exit. And I did it with intention. And I did it because at age 50, I'm allowed to take a reduced pension. So that's what I did. I signed up for the reduced section of the pension, and now I quit as of August. And now I'm stepping full time into my entrepreneurship as a human design coach, as well as finishing up my degree in psychotherapy.
I love that. And I feel like that reduced pension idea can really help someone because I didn't know that that was a thing. Because, yeah, at 50, we really can step into a whole new version of ourselves. And I think that's so cool how you've been able to make that work. Tell me about your awakening and how you stepped into human design and how it's changed your life.
hmm Great question. I really was hoping we could dive into this a little bit with some depth today. Is that part of that awakening that happened in 2020, 2021 for me was the coming to terms with why I wanted to be a teacher. Way back when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, it was just living within me. And I realized during this time at around 2021 that I was facing some trauma that was unhealed and was unresolved. And now I have language for it from my psychotherapy degree. And it's really called appeasement trauma or fawning. And it's about people pleasing and overgiving. And so I grew up in a very controlling environment in my home. And I realized that a profession that I could be really good at that could help me in the controlling environment that I grew up in was to be a teacher. Why not get a paycheck to be able to have my voice be heard at all times? Why not get a paycheck to be the authority in the classroom? What a perfect opportunity. So it wasn't just all about that because I did have a lot of passion behind teaching and I did have a very good rapport with my students and I really loved my job. But at the age 45, 46, it started to get really taxing because all I was doing throughout my whole career was serve other people. And it really woke me up to say, wait a minute, what about me? And I completely lost myself. I'm sure some of your audience can relate to this, where you lose this part of yourself or this connection with your purpose, this connection with why you are here, and having to go within to figure that out. And boom, what happened? The universe threw me human design through a bunch of different synchronicities. And I'm getting full goosebumps right now just talking about it. And I started embodying my human design and learning about it. And it really put me back into the driver's seat of my soul, why I've come here. And I figured I can still be a teacher. I can still teach. And within my profile and within yours, which I hope we can get to a little bit later, within your profile is this role model and teacher within the sixth line. And, it's really opened me up to not just be a teacher within the classroom with the school environment, within the four walls of the school and little kids, but I can widen my audience with my teacher voice and reach many different people, such as female entrepreneurs that your audience is listening to right now.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true. Like my awakening journey was caused by just crippling anxiety and my body really trying to get my attention. And it's powerful when we kind of surrender to that and we allow that death to happen in order for the rebirth process to happen. Because I feel like I keep undergoing these mini deaths, and every time I come back a whole new person. And then it's so powerful when you do tap into something like with you, human design. With me, it was Reiki and energy healing, and it completely changed my whole world and the direction of how I operate. So tell me about your human design archetype and what that means for you and your purpose.
Sure. So I think this is a good time. So I'll talk about me and my human design in particular, and then I'll open it up to all the different types for your audience. And we'll just kind of do a little bit of
Perfect. Yes. Tell us everything.
dabbling.
Tell us like we know nothing.
Okay. So let's start right from the beginning. So human design is a beautiful, complex, yet simplistic modern day spiritual science. And within this science, which I love the most, it incorporates four ancient sciences. So there's new things coming out in historical understandings right now around our ancestors. And they weren't just these cavemen that lived back, clobbering a rock or anything like that. They were very, very intentional. So the sciences that are within human design are the Kabbalah, which is ancient Jewish mysticism. We also have the I Ching, which is many people have never heard of before. This is the Book of Changes from China. It's also underneath a lot of Chinese medicine. We also have basic astrology, which most of your audience is familiar with. And then we have the chakra system, which is inside the Reiki learning that both you and I have done. And so when you combine, imagine these four amazing, huge, ancient sciences all into one system, you get human design. And so just knowing that basic introduction caught my attention because I'm a Scorpio. I'm all about death and transformation. And I have studied existentialism and going really deep into people's purpose and why we are here. This was the gold. This was the answer for me. And so what it is, it's a visual map. So when I gather your birth date, time, and place, I type it into my back-end system and I can pull up your visual map, which I showed you of yours. And you can see all of the different aspects of the science living within this visual map of your auric field since you were born. So people don't just learn about, you discovered you're a generator today. You've been a generator since birth. So I will talk a little bit about my little pieces of my human design now that I've given your audience a little bit of understanding, and then we can dive into each one. If I were to meet you on the street, Jeannie, and you were to ask me, hey, Tiffini, what's your human design? I would say I'm a 6 sacral generator.
And to the
by the way,
average person, that's like,
it's
what?
like, what?
Yeah.
Just
Even
gobbledygook.
with me, if you put numbers in there, I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
confused. Yeah.
I lost you. Yeah. And for your audience, just so Jeannie, like you are what we call a 6-2 sacral manifesting generator. And just before we got on the call, we have like cousin-like energy. So let's start with the generator part. Okay. So being a generator is one of the types within human design. Now, human design has 5 different auric field types that exist. And these don't stay stagnant. Earth is evolving and changing its consciousness. So are the human beings living on the planet too. So 37% of the population are generator types. And we're starting to dwindle a little bit in that percentage as the Earth is going through its transformation. And generators are creative powerhouses in nature. They have energy for days and days. Their sacral center is defined meaning they have a full gas tank and their sacral is centered just below their belly buttons, like the womb. And this fuels the rest of the body. And so we are meant to bring ideas to life from other people as well as our own ideas. So if we're not tapped into our joy, and if we're constantly appeasing, like I talked before, and people pleasing, then we're not doing our job. And we can have health issues because if we're not listening to our energy body, it seeps into our physical, which causes us some pain. So sometimes with generators, they can really have difficulty settling in the evening because they have prioritized many other people's needs ahead of theirs and they haven't done it for them. And so their soul is like, hey, wait a minute, it's 9 o'clock. What about me? What about my purpose? We're here to do something more than just feeding everybody else and doing things for other people. So that's the basics of the generator. And if their aura were to speak, if their aura were to talk, it were to say, hey, everyone, I'm available. Come on in. Here's my energy. And our auras are wide open. So we literally, with our aura, send a message to everybody else going, come on in. Here, take my energy. It's free. Go ahead. And so this can get us, if we don't have strong boundaries, into some difficulties, right? With giving it away for free. So that's the basics of the generator type.
What would you say is the purpose more so of the generator type? Like, what is their gift to the world? Like, yes, they attract the people who want their energy, but how can they transmute that or use that for their purpose?
Great question. So if I were to add to the fact that I'm a 6/3 sacral generator, I would also add on that my incarnation cross, which is the purpose within the human design system, and it has nothing to do with Christianity. It's just the crossing of the stars in the sky. So everyone has this incarnation cross. Mine is called the left ankle cross of alignment. And guess what? Yours is.
Cool. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yes. So your purpose is literally lying within this system and within the cross. So think of two lines crossing and making an intersection. We have two numbers. We call them gates, which lives in the I Ching. So I'm not going to get too complicated here, but we have two gates, two prominent numbers in our chart that live at the top. So one is called our conscious sun. It's what we're here to do in this lifetime. And then we have our conscious earth, which what is like our lifelong evolutionary lesson. And it's not solved immediately. It keeps hitting us in the face over and over and over again that we're meant to kind of deal with. And we move over. So that's the side of the personality in our charts, our ego, our mind, and the masculine, the action taking, the moving into the world, the doing. Then we move over to the design part of the chart, where our soul's birth lives. And in our soul's birth is what we call our unconscious sun, which is our health and our radiance. So our soul wants to be healthy in our physical body. So that number tells us about what makes us healthy and radiant in this lifetime. And the number underneath that is called our unconscious earth. That grounds that number, and that was what deeply fulfills us. So I'll pick one of the numbers to help us with our incarnation cross. Would you like me to dive into one of those numbers or?
Yeah, I want to know exactly like how we can identify our purpose through that. Yeah.
So when you download your chart, you will get the actual writing. So the left ankle cross of alignment, if you did a reading with me or any other human design reader, hopefully they would go into what this actually means. And there's 192 of them. So the left ankle cross of alignment is really about moving people in general from one place to another, from moving them from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. That when I found out that my purpose is really to kind of awaken something within another person, to move them out of these old belief patterns, these limiting thoughts, you could apply that to almost anything and take them to a new way, a new perspective, a new way of learning. I said, becoming a therapist is one of the best ways to be able to do that in a kind and caring manner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about getting into the nitty gritty, hiring the right human design reader who will do your incarnation cross with you. Be wary of that because when you hire somebody, many people will only give you your strategy, your authority, your profile, and your type. They won't get into the nitty gritty of what I call the individualistic differentiation of your chart. And that's where the juiciness lies. That's where my clients light up on the screen where I'm doing readings over Zoom, and they find out what their purpose is and they get confirmation. Confirmation can be transformation for people.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been for me. I've still been integrating a lot of the messages I received from you in our first meeting, and it's been powerful, especially recognizing as a manifesting generator. We could go into that
Mhm.
aspect next. Just what it means for me and how it's played out in my whole life, but it also has now given me so much more compassion for myself and the way that I evolve and pivot. I think I was very hard on myself about my approach before. So so let's talk about manifesting generators next.
Absolutely. So, manifesting generators, which you are one, are 33% of the population. And like I said, we have like cousin like energies. So, everything I said about the generator is somewhat true for you. You still are a creative powerhouse by nature. You're here to bring your ideas and other people's ideas to life and into form. That word inform means to bring into form. So taking those ideas from their head and bringing them out and giving them life, that's really part of your purpose in this lifetime. But you move faster than I do. You're the cheetah of the human design system. And you are, I don't know if any of your listeners know about that highway. I use this metaphor of that highway in Europe where there's no speed limits. Okay. You don't have any speed limits to your energy and you move so quickly that other people have a difficult time sometimes keeping up with your level of speed. And what I mean by that is that you're very gifted at skipping step in process of things. Does that relate to you?
Yeah, yeah. And something that you said to me when we first met, and you told me, like, we talked about the manifesting generator traits. You told me how my job is I have to keep people informed on what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've totally taken into consideration because it's true. I always kind of thought like, okay, I'm in this whole new world. I've had my deaths and my rebirths and now I'm here. And I just expect that everyone knows where I'm at. And yes, and I see how it's caused so much confusion in the past for people. And it's hurt my brand, especially too, not keeping people informed on what I'm doing and where I'm at, what I'm excited about in that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
I've pivoted now with that and it's helping. I like it. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I see there's confirmation again, right?
Mhm.
So this is about, so let me go into a few more details here about manifesting generators. So you have the sacral that's defined. So you have that full gas tank that lives down near your belly button area. It fuels the rest of your body. But what makes it unique for me is that you have a direct connection from the sacral center to your throat. And the throat center in human design is called the manifestation center. It's where sound vibration lives. It's where we express ourselves. And no wonder you have a podcast because you are a gifted communicator. And not just when you're speaking, but also with your listening abilities too. So this is the perfect platform for most manifesting generators because of the gift of communication that you bring to the world. Now, your aura is also open. It's also saying, hey, everyone, I'm available. Come on in. But you talked about this informing. So everyone has a strategy in human design. We don't want, as a person, as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, or even as a business owner, to throw spaghetti at the wall. That might get a few clients, that might get a few things going, but it's not going to be consistent. We want consistency and something to lean back on to know this is my way of being. So you have two strategies. So we share one, which is called waiting to respond. So think of your sacral center as this Batman signal. It's this beautiful magnet and it's going out into the world and it's always scanning for the right things. But again, going back to that appeasement, if you're constantly saying yes to everything that's coming into your response field, the universe is working in co-construction with you and going, hey, she keeps saying yes to all these things. Let's give her more. And then you get overwhelmed, right? So your job is generator jobs mostly is to be able to say no, like to say no a lot more than we are saying yes. and to really prioritize those things that light us up. So that's one part. That applies to generators and manifesting generators. But because you're so fast and you're meant to pivot consistently in your energy, you also have a dual part to your response, is to inform. Okay. And it's not slowing you down. Never would I ask anyone to change who they are for somebody else. Your job is to, again, bring things into form. What's going on up here in your head? What's going on in your heart? If you're the best thing for you is to help communicate those things to the people that you love. And like you said, to your clientele or to the people who are listening, because they want to keep up with you. They love you. They want to support you. But if you're not informing them of what's happening because your speed is so quick, they feel a little bit out of the loop sometimes.
Absolutely. That really, really resonates, especially like every winter. I'm very in touch with my inner season, my inner cycles. Every winter I go into a hibernation, like and I always come out of it transformed. I read a lot of books in that time. I take on new creative projects, but then I also let go of a lot. I reevaluate all the services I'm offering in my business, and I let go of everything. I try not to take on any work at that time, and I just really go inward and embody that sacral energy, that creative energy. And it's powerful because I come out of it and I'm reborn, but exactly like I'll sometimes lose friends in that time, and I'll just find that everything changes. And that's where before I wasn't informing. It was like I woke up as this new person and I come out into the world and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And I see how, yeah, it caused confusion and things change. So the keeping people informed part has been so powerful for me too. Like I've recently, after we talked about this, like the first thing I did was I was like, I got to go on my website. I got to like redo my email marketing. I need to make sure that this is all accurate. And I realized, no, there was a lot of key points that were missing as to where I'm at now. So I think that's a great thing for manifesting generators to do. Can we talk about some of the other ones too? I want to come back to manifesting generators again too, because I have more information to share about that. But I would love to touch on the other design types as well before we do that, to maybe people listen and try to figure out which one they are too.
Absolutely. So if I could say just one more thing to close up the generator package there,
Yeah.
because we're dominant in society, our generators and manifesting generators. We make up 70% of the population. And we are these like energizer bunnies running around, and we're constantly doing and bringing things into form. And the other 30%, which we're about to talk about, they look to us as examples of how to live their life because we dominate, where they're going to come across us more often. So if we are not prioritizing ourselves and we are constantly appeasing and giving up our energy for free, it not only sends a message to the other energy types in human design of that's what you're supposed to do to be successful, in quotations, but that's even not who I am. So there's a lot more social conditioning. I would argue, this is my point of view, that happens with the types we're just about to talk about now because there's less of them out there. Okay. So the first one that I have a little bit of a little small bias towards, only because they're guides, leaders, teachers, and visionaries, and they're called the projectors. Their main role in this lifetime is to guide. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean you as a manifesting generator can't be a guide, but if they are not guiding in some sort of lead part of their life, they are out of their alignment. Okay. So it's a must for them. It's a choice for us. Okay. So I hope that makes sense for your listeners. So projectors are about 21% of the population. More of them are coming right now into the earth plane, and they're very new. They've only been around for about 400 years. And their role, like I said, is to guide, but they have a very different strategy than the generator types. So their sacral center is not defined. It's not colored in. They don't have a full gas tank. They're kind of plugging into the generators throughout their day to get that extra bit of boost and that energy. And strategy is to sit back and wait for an invitation. Projectors' auras are not wide open like ours. They're shaped like kind of like a laser beam or like an arrowhead. Imagine if you had an arrowhead or a laser beam in front of you and behind you, and everywhere you went, your gift is to open up or pierce through other people in a good way, not for bad, but in a good way, to open them up and see them for who they are right away without any BS. Okay, they're not great at small talk. And they also require more rest, and they require more attention in a one-on-one setting. So in order to be in a very good relationship with a projector, you really want to recognize them and invite them and create warmth in the environment so they feel comfortable to share. And what can trip up a projector sometimes, especially in romantic relationships, is where they expect the other person to give what they are giving. And if the projector's in a relationship with one of us, like a generator, a manifesting generator, their expectations are quite high in terms of recognition and invitation, because that's their natural way of being. So they might feel a little bit rejected, and they need a little extra boost in those type of relationships to feel seen and recognized. So I would also argue here, Jeannie, is that your listeners, if they do dive into their human design and they do find out their type, knowing their love language in relationships is also very helpful too. But that's a side note. So the projectors, guides, teachers, visionaries, they can see things. They're very objective, bird's eye view type people. Again, 21% of the population. And you'll just know when you meet a projector, because they're not just going to ask you a simplistic type question at a networking event. They're going to go right in, and they want to know who you are and why you're there immediately.
I like those people. Those, I do well with those people. Yeah. So what do we have next?
Yeah. So the next group are called the Manifestors, and the Manifestors are very rare. They're only 9% of the population, and they are the firepower. So their aura is almost like, if you can imagine a glass bowl, protective glass bowl, like a fish bowl around you, because they have the fireball Super Mario living within this glass bowl. So imagine Super Mario picking up that fireball star that he gets to throw the fireballs, right? But it only lasts for about 30 seconds. So if we use that analogy, the manifestor has 200% energy. So take the manifesting generator or generator energy and times that by 2. They are the firepower people. They need the most amount of rest, because they are so strong, and their job is to disrupt and innovate and change for good. So here's an example. Johnny Depp. Okay. He is a manifestor in human design. Look what he's done to the acting world in terms of the roles he takes, the way he initiates and leads on screen, and the types of different acting roles he's taken. He just leads the way in his acting role. We also have examples of Austin Matthews on the Maple Leafs and Bo Bichette on the Blue Jays. They're both manifestors. They get things going. They initiate. They're the fire starters. But they're at 200% or they're at 0. And if they're not allowed to lead, because leading is their energy, if they're not allowed to lead and initiate, so imagine a child like myself who was in a controlled environment, like with their thumb over them, everyone's telling them what to do all the time, that can create a ton of social conditioning for them, because they can't do what they're supposed to do, and it shuts them down from a very early age.
What kind of work would be good for someone like that? Like you said, leading, but is there anything deeper?
So think about a company. Let's say a company is going through a rebrand, okay? And they're starting and rejigging everything. I would definitely get a manifestor in there and look at what needs to stop, start, and continue. So what's working well, what's not working well, and what should we continue? And then bring the projector in to guide the rest of the project to the finale. Because the manifestor comes in and just sparks things, and they need to lean in and ask for more support. Okay. And let other people finish. So some shame that manifestors might carry with them is that they start a bunch of projects, or they start a bunch of businesses, or they start things, but they can't bring them to a close. And that's some shame that they feel because they feel that they should do that. But if a manifestor is going to start a coaching community, then over time, as their business grows, they definitely need to be bringing in a virtual assistant or somebody like that to help them do the administrative stuff that is very, very boring to them. And it's not meant for their energy at all.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Yeah. The last one are now, these people have a special place in humanity. Overall, they are called the Reflectors. Now, like I said, the manifestors, so I should go back to the manifestor for one moment. Their throat is always defined. So that's where they initiate. They initiate through their throat. Now, the reflectors have all of their energy centers completely open. So I've been talking about this defined energy versus this open energy. So you'll see if you download your chart, there's energy centers that are gray in color for most of us and white in color. So if they're defined, they're colored in. It means you have consistent energy in those areas of your body. If they're white in nature, they're either open or undefined. It means you're receiving energy in those areas of your body. And the reflector has completely white energy through their whole body. Imagine walking around the universe like a sponge, and you're just constantly absorbing, and you don't have any type of defense shield to bring up to go, wait a minute. Okay. So their aura is made like Teflon, similar to the manifestor in terms of that protection, but theirs doesn't have this fireball living within it. They actually require this protection for themselves because so much social conditioning can happen to them. They are extremely sensitive human beings, and they're meant to be our mirrors and our triggers. So when you meet a reflector, which is quite rare because there's only 1% of them out there, they might say something. And then in that statement, you feel something rise within you, some feelings, some anger, or joy. It doesn't have to be negative, but something within you is rising up that needs to come out, that needs to be seen. And more reflectors are also starting to come into the earth plane right now.
So they're really helping to heal the world by triggering everything, bringing it all to the surface. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's their job, is to mirror. And they're here to kind of wake humanity up and, trigger us to look within here, because as well as I do, when you are triggered, that is the perfect time to say, wait a minute, why am I getting so upset right now? Because I can only control what's going on here. So why am I getting so upset right now?
They're showing us our work.
That's right. I
Yeah.
love that. I might have to steal that one. They're showing us our work. I love that.
Yeah. But then it's hard because if you're not in a place of self-awareness, then you really can't handle being around a reflector. So a reflector may be somebody who is the hardest person, in your life. It potentially, it could, they're walking around and you said they're only 1% of the population.
Yes.
Now, so as a reflector, do they feel everything deeply? Are they highly empathic?
Highly sensitive, highly empathic. They have to wait. So part of their strategy is to wait a full moon cycle to go by to make proper decisions, because their job is to sample. So the manifestor's job, remember, was to initiate and lead. The reflector's job is to sample. So the analogy I love to use is going to the ice cream store and sampling all the different little spoons, those little cute spoons at the ice cream store. And their aura is constantly sending these little tiny trial out spoons. So they're meant to try things on and then let them go. And then after the full moon cycle has gone through the 28 days, they can then sit down and do some reflection. So I always, always tell reflectors to get into tune with the moon and to do some really deep reflection with your journaling when the full moon cycle is gone, and look back at the month and go, okay, where am I letting a decision sit? And where was I impulsive in my decision? And what was the result of that?
Mhm. What
Mhm.
kind of work would they be good at?
Great question. So, um, a lot of reflectors can see things even deeper than the projector can. So, um, I say entrepreneurship is wonderful for the reflector because they're sampling, right? Different ways of doing things. Entrepreneurship is one of the most amazing ways to be able to like discover who you are. And the reflector needs that time to grow into themselves over time. I have a friend who's a reflector, and we're doing an event next week. And she's come up with she got a pet, and she came up with her own idea to make dehydrated pet treats for her dog. And now she's 2 years away from moving out of her full time job as a reflector, and she just has sampled, literally sampled in the kitchen, many different recipes and many different ways of putting this treat together for dogs, and it's been a wild success.
Wow. Yeah. And that resonates with me being a manifesting generator as well, because that is something that I've noticed is a huge part of my history and what I've gone through is constantly pivoting and my excitements are always changing. And that's where before I would be really, really hard on myself because I guess the way I like to call it is I always describe myself as like someone who likes the honeymoon phase of things.
Mm.
So I'll get really excited about something and then I'm like, I'm all in and I'm so in love with it and I'm so passionate about it. But then once I learn, I guess the lessons I needed to learn out of it, once I got what I needed, I'm over it. I'm done. Like I'm not looking back and I just drop it and I'm out. And that was very hard for me for a very long time because, especially through my entrepreneurial journey, I've been pursuing side hustles and things for over a decade now. It was hard because I feel like I would always try something and it would get to like that moment where it could really become successful and I would just drop it and I'd let it go. And it got to the point where I would start something new and I'd kind of have this like looming feeling of like, okay, so how long is this going to last until I lose interest? And it made me really doubt myself. And I thought, maybe I'm struggling with discipline. Maybe there's other problems. But now I recognize that it is just helping me be able to evolve. And also, all of the things that I've tried were absolutely part of what I was supposed to experience. And that's what's now given me the confidence because I see how when I look back at all of my so-called failed attempts at entrepreneurship, it was like, no, that was just giving me all of the skills and tools that I needed to do the work that I'm doing now. And now I'm in a place where I'm able to support other entrepreneurs and help them launch their ideas and help them with their creative energies and their strategies and step further into their purpose. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't have tried all of these things and learned all of these lessons. But it's hard when we don't have that awareness around it and when we're kind of out there doing things all alone. So I find human design has really empowered me in the sense that it's showing me that this is my purpose and I am fulfilling my purpose and passion and excitement are part of my purpose. And there was something else that you said to me that really resonated when you were just like, you're always going to be wanting to try new things. But the big part is, you find that overall gift that you have or that skill that you have and your way of expressing it. And for me, yeah, like we said, podcasting, writing, anything to do with the throat and communication is huge, but also I'm so embodied in that sacral energy of I need to create things. And that's where I love helping people with their brands and their marketing strategies, because for me, I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. I get to now launch other people's projects instead of launching my own. Like that's the part that I love. That's the honeymoon phase.
Mm-hmm.
So human design for me has been so powerful in the sense of it's just taught me way more about myself than I thought possible. Like I feel so seen, heard, and understood by human design.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
and what you said there, like the word that's kept hitting me over and over again was this multi-passionate being that you are.
Yeah.
And society and school, this is one of the reasons why I had to leave my job, was because of this social conditioning that happens in the school system that a lot of us are not privy to. This linear way of doing things, this logical way of doing things, step by step by step. And you skip steps. I bet you were that kid in school who's like, I got it after the second lesson, right? This is boring.
I'm the kid who dropped out of school because I didn't have time for it anymore. I was ready to start working full time.
Yeah.
I dropped out of high school because I was over it. I couldn't do it anymore. I ended up going to college later, getting in an alternative way. I wrote some equivalency exams, and I thrived in college because I found something I was passionate about. It was radio broadcasting. It was communicating, sharing messages, and I loved it. But like now I'm like, a career in radio, I recognize wasn't for me. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was totally part of my purpose because it helped me master my speaking skills and my communication and put strategy and logic behind everything. As where, if I hadn't have followed that excitement in that moment, I would have missed out on all these opportunities.
Right, right. And if I could add one more thing there, the teaching profession, due to report cards and the pressure of writing a report card and evaluating people, is this pressure on producing something, producing a product. And I feel for teachers because they're forced into the system of doing that. But we talk about in schools this triangulation of assessment. And I won't get too into this, but we're not just as teachers meant to look for products from students, things they're producing, which really feeds the generator types. But what about producing a podcast? That's product, but it's not tangible. It's not something I can hand in, right? I can, yes, through a disc or whatever, but I mean, it's not something that is thought about as something tangible that I can touch and feel and smell, right? So we get trapped into thinking in school at a very young age that I must produce something or I'm not worthy. Because if I don't hand in my work, I get a failing grade. And we get these messages over and over hitting our different sensitivities in our body, right? Telling us that our worthiness is based on something we produce. And we have to really do a better job of understanding children's development, number one, but also what are different ways of evaluation in terms of observations and communication. And I wish more teachers would sit back in their classroom and not put so much pressure on themselves and just kind of see the kids and observe them and listen to them, because there's so much juiciness there. And I bet you would have thrived in a classroom where you had more teachers that would evaluate you based on how you were such a gifted communicator and brought that out more as well.
Yeah, yeah. I feel you. Like you're touching so many points for me with the education system, and I find myself in a stage of motherhood right now where I'm having to make the decision about sending my kids to school and everything. And right now I'm doing a hybrid homeschool model, and I really, my intuition is telling me homeschool, but I'm also a multifaceted entrepreneur who is like, well, I don't know, schools like free daycare, like,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I feel that, and I know, like, my soul and me as that child in school, I would have loved having an opportunity to just explore more creative avenues and alternative careers. Like, I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant until I was probably like 17 or 18 years old. We were never taught that when I was in school. I remember having a grade 10 careers class, and the guest speakers who would come in and try to get us to be interested in their jobs. Like, we had the Army come in one time and try to recruit us in grade 10. Like, there was just nothing about working for yourself or having your own thoughts and your own ideas and being a manifesting generator in that kind of environment. It was challenging because it all felt wrong to me. I couldn't conform to what was being asked of me. I very much felt like an outcast in that situation. And I had all of these bigger callings and ideas, and it wasn't being nurtured or fueled. So
And what I would love to touch on, because we're getting towards the end, I'm assuming here this wonderful conversation, but what I would love to touch on just to, talk to your audience if they're, because you told me that a lot of your audience is around this beginning of a business, right? This beginning and starting something. So this light that's coming out from within, like that purpose, yes, but that either that product, or you talk more about like a service-based business and coaching. And so one of the reasons, it's important to know and embody and get curious about your human design before you go hire somebody to do your branding colors and your fonts and all of that, is that this is a foundational brick, because once you know just even the basics, your type, your strategy, your authority, you always will have something to come back to lean in on, to know what the next right thing is to do. Because you will get to a point in your business, 6 months, a year, you're constantly evolving. Things are changing. You hit a brick wall. You need to pivot, whatever it might be. Then you feel like you have to go hire somebody else to help you fix this and hire somebody else to fix this. It's about that search for that certification thing that we need to kind of calm down a little bit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I found my human design before I found my business coach, and I love her to death, but it was me stepping into my foundation here first and knowing my profile, my strategy, all of those things, to have this grounding as to when I do falter or when I do pivot or when I do want to rebrand even, I know exactly what to do.
Yeah. And that resonates so deeply with me because that's where the empoweredpreneur was born out of for me. It was wanting to help other entrepreneurs empower themselves with the skills and knowledge they need to succeed. And part of that too is I offer brand and marketing coaching. And I prefer to do that over the done for you services because I know that that's what I needed. I needed someone to just tell me the strategies of how to do it myself. So when those moments come where I pivot, exactly, I can do it. Because for me, the brand strategy, if I'm helping someone create a brand strategy, it's not about them. It's about who they're looking to serve. It's about their client, customer, and speaking to them. And yeah, having that clarity on who you want to help, who you want to be of service to, and how you're expressing that through your purpose it's so important. And I see how human design would benefit all entrepreneurs. Well, I mean, all humans in general, because it
Mhm.
really just helps us figure out, exactly like you said, the direction we're going, the direction we want to go, and more so just about how we can be of service and what our gifts are. Because as a manifesting generator, especially, I can only speak to that experience is that, I felt like I had so many different purposes along the way. But now recognizing that my purpose is to inform and be a role model and a teacher and a guide for others, it's like, oh, well, now it makes pivoting easy for me because now I can just do that in all different kinds of areas. I can just educate and inform on whatever I'm excited about in that moment instead
Right.
of being like, 1 minute I'm helping people with their brand and then the next minute I'm helping people, set boundaries and overcome their limiting beliefs. Now I just recognize, no, my goal and my purpose is just to be that role model and that educator. And that's
Mhm.
helpful. It's
It's
very helpful.
very helpful. Yeah, that
Yeah.
profile. So that one last piece of the human design that I do in my readings is critical. And the way that I explain the profile is this, is that all humans are photographers, and every photographer has a camera, and that's your aura. And at birth, we get to choose our lens. And there's 12 different lenses, 12 different profiles. I pick the 6-3 lens, put it on my aura. You pick the 6-2 lens, you put it on your aura. We both share the 6 line. The 6 line's very special because we live our life in 3 phases. And from 0 to 30, we have a lot more challenges in our life. Then from 30 to 50, we take those life lessons, we go to the rooftop and we dive into those lumps of coal, those proverbial lumps of coal, and we dust them off, take more of an objective perspective, and we make them into diamonds. And then as we approach 50, which I just turned last month, so I've literally just come off the roof, and now I'm meant to take those diamonds and really embody this full on role model and teacher. So when I'm creating content, and I would argue for you as well, when you're creating content, having a 6 line in your profile really grounds you, because creating content, I'm sure you would agree, can be very, very intimidating, and you are not knowing how to do it, what to do it, when to do it, how to do it, right? But your profile really helps you because it's how you're expressing your energy. So if you're creating a reel, Jeannie, you want to be that role model and teacher in that reel. That's your frame. So whatever the content is, if you're teaching about branding, you want to be that teacher. So take on the teacher role when you're making that content. That really, really helps people not fluster and fumble and figure out what kind of voice they're meant to take on. So that profile can be really like the cherry on top for people when they
Yeah,
plan their design.
absolutely. Absolutely. I like that, applying it to your content strategy, because
Hmm.
it's great. It's great. Yeah. Thank you. Is there any piece of advice that you would give to somebody who is, wanting to step further into their purpose and maybe finally quit their teaching job and go all in on what excites them?
Hmm. Well, studying to be a psychotherapist, that shift that I've been on and I'm still going on, I would say that, first of all, get out of your head and into your body. And I'm still learning this. Okay. I've still a lot of embodiment work to do, but we do not live in a society where our mind is separate from our body. And through becoming a psychotherapist, I want to help people understand that many women have been living in their masculine, this action oriented, rational way of being. And when human design talks about bringing it all together and using our signals within our body, our chemical structure, our emotions, getting into our feminine energy to really be able to step into our next evolution of self. So we're all evolving, but it's whether or not you want to be conscious of that evolving or unconscious to it. And the first thing is to get to know that human design, but also trust yourself. Trust yourself on a very deep level. And I can say that to the moon and back, but it's a very deep healing journey to get curious about what patterns and things you're doing now that continue that aren't serving you any longer in your next evolution. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
That was beautiful. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. What's the biggest final question? What's the biggest lesson that you have learned on your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say that, again, that self-trust has been a constant thing, but figuring out, and when I say figure out, it's not just in your head, it's this overall knowing that your intuition, wherever it's speaking to you in your body, is your superpower. Whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. And your intuition within the human design system whispers at us. And so our mind and our emotions scream the loudest. And we want to create more space for quiet, more space for calm, more space to heal our nervous system, to then be able to hear what those whispers are actually telling us, because they just whisper, they just go by. And sometimes we miss them, and we can't follow them, right? If we're not listening.
Mm, thank you. Now, you have a beautiful offer on your website where anyone can go on, enter their birth date, and get their human design chart. So, can you tell us how to do
Yes.
that, please?
Yes. So this is the big deal. You don't want to just go to my website and start clicking buttons. There's a beautiful button that's pink. It says find your human design. That's the key. You want to go and click that link and type in your birth information. So your name, your birth date, your time, and your place. And then once you do that, out pops your beautiful body graph. This is the map that I've been referring to in the human design system. And you will then be able to download that and then go back to my website and book a free discovery call. And we can talk about your chart, and I can tell you about your type and talk about all these little details with you and send you. What I do is with all my clients, whether they're paying me or not, I will give them the copy of their chart if they didn't download it. And I will also then send some podcasts for them to listen to dip their toe in, to figure out what this is all about. Because sometimes this can be a lot at the beginning. So I like to ease people into this because, you know, as well as I do, a lot of customers, they need a lot of time to know, like, and trust you. And they need to start understanding their design from their point of view first before I start telling them about who they are, because they already know.
I love that. Thank you. And what's your website?
My website is just my name. So it's www.tiffini.jacobs, JACOBS.com.
Tiffini.jacobs.com.
So it's
Awesome.
Tiffini.jacobs.com. That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffini. I'm just so grateful for all this. And I'm excited to just integrate all of these new messages from you now into this. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciated being on your podcast.
Woo-hoo.